Karen Frankel coming to you on a Friday afternoon. Hello to everybody. It's fantastic to have you here both live on the Friday afternoon and of course to all of you who watch on the replay and of course to all of you who watch on YouTube. It's very satisfying for me to get feedback from you guys about how much you're enjoying these videos. I do get fantastic feedback from the guys that post in Get Drawing, but sometimes I'm not that sure, so it's lovely to find out that you are learning things, so that's brilliant. So we come to colour this week, and just to give you a heads up, I have in the past done a full colour theory session on a Friday afternoon and a full color wheel session. Now I know you might think that color wheel is a bit naff, a bit primary school. In my color theory lesson, it's not about your typical color wheel with red, blue and yellow, forgot for a sec, that you learned at primary school. We are talking about warm and cool colors, a split primary color wheel. So I'm going to give you a very quick lesson in that today, because warm and cool colors come into their own when you are putting colors into landscapes. So it's obviously not only to do with drawing, it's to do with painting as well. And that's where you come to understand the nuances of warm and cool to create depth in landscape. So that's in particular what we're going to be talking about today, and I highly advise you to go and have a look at the color theory a bit later. I will put the link to that video in the comments of this video so that you can go and have a look at that, and that will help you as well. It's with the blue and the red where people get confused, because when you grow up and when you're at school, etc., red is a warm color and blue is a cool color. How can blue be warm and how can red be cool? And the main characteristic of whether a color is warm or whether it's cool is how much red or blue that it's got in it. So if we look at this blue, this blue is actually an ultramarine blue. It's got a number of different names, but pretty much the purpley blue, which is the way I like to think of it. If you think of it as a purpley blue, you know that purple is made with mixing blue and red. So you know that it's got a bit of red in it if it's a purpley blue. So if something has red in it, then it is warm, even if it's a blue. Now, by the same token, it's cool if it doesn't have red in it. So that blue very obviously does not have any red in it. So it is cool, okay? When it comes to the red, that red, it doesn't look purple, but it's on the purpley side, okay? Whereas that red looks very, very orange. So by the same token as here, it's cool if it's got blue in it, right? So that red is actually considered cool because it's got some blue in it, and it's got some blue in it because it's on the purpley side. So that's when I do color theory, I try to think of, is it more purple or is it more orange? I try to think of the secondary colors. So I've got my purple in there. So that is actually a cool red. Even though it is a red, it's got blue in it. So that's why that's cool. And when we come to our other red, and that's a very orangey red there. Let's see if I can find another red that's, yeah, that's an orangey red as well. That doesn't have blue in it, therefore it is warm. Okay, so that's the way to think about it with your blues and your reds. Has it got the opposite colour in, or has it not? That's the landscape I did last week, and a very good way of trying out your landscape, trying out your colour, is to actually put the colour on top of your pencil work, because you've already got your darks and lights in place. So I'm going to give you the rule for landscape colours. We now understand what warm and cool is, or you might not understand just yet, but you will come to understand based on that little demonstration. Warm colours come forward. So when I do all of my landscapes, pretty much all of them, I remember that, and I put my warm colours. So even if this is a green in the front, I'm putting a warm red in there, because I know that's going to help the landscape to come forward. So if I'm going to put yellow in that strip, it was quite a sandy area, I'm going to put a warm yellow. So I'm going to put some warm yellow in the front there as well. And can you see that the graphite is still controlling the tone, but putting the color over the top is quite a nice way of going about things. Warm greens are particularly what Australian greens look like. If you take a green from your colouring inbox, which I don't really recommend unless you are mixing it with other things, it's probably better that you don't choose one of these random bright colours, you know, those apple greeny colours. I'm not quite sure why they are in sets of pencils, except that they look fantastic when the kids use them. See that bright green? That's not really the colour of grass, certainly not in Australia. But if you want to make that look like it's coming forward, you can add a subtle bit of red into it or underneath it. Okay, and even if you don't actually see the red in the work, you only see the green mixing. No, that's the purple that I don't want. Looking for my blue. So you know that blue and yellow make green. So I'm using my warm blue here to put that green in, and I'm going to put some warm yellow. If I can find my little warm yellow pencil, there it is. That helps the illusion of the foreground coming towards you. So even if you don't actually see the red, because the red is mixed in the orange, maybe. Have I got an orange? That's close to orange. Or the red is mixed in the yellow, in an ochre, or the red is mixed in the blue, as I've pointed out, the purpley blue. Even if you don't actually see red, that grass is going to come forward. And as the color goes back, you can start cooling it off. So cooling it off means changing the grass, making the grass with a yellow that doesn't have red in it and a blue that doesn't have red in it. Now I know I'm doing a very harsh change there. You can mix it up. You could even use that green here. So do the whole thing with those two colors, and then only put a little bit of red in the front. So if I wet that, I know this isn't meant to be a wet demonstration, but what happens is the cooler color recedes and makes you feel like going further back. Okay, so that's in the foreground here. Another thing that happens as things go back, and this is also part of color theory, is that the colors get not only cooler, which I've just mentioned here, but they tend to get a little bit bluer, which I guess is the same thing, because you can choose cool colors have got blue in them. If you remembered the three rules, the foreground, middle ground, and background rules that I gave you last week, I said that the intensity changes as you get further back. So you have intense colors, intense marks in the foreground, and they get less intense going back. If you mix opposite colors on the color wheel, and that's called complementary colors, so you mix your blue with orange, you mix your red with green, and you mix your yellow with purple, they act as a graying off, a dulling down for each other. And that's what happens when you move back into the landscape. If you look at that scene there, you can hardly see those mountains in the distance, and they are graying off. This is in Thailand, and you can see that there is warm orangey colors. Obviously the dirt is orangey color, but even in those what's that called, in the stripes there, not the stripes, the thatch there, even on top of those awnings there, you can see that that is all a bit warmer. And then as you go back, the landscape gets cooler and cooler, and those far distant mountains get less and less intense. There's another Thailand picture, and you can see that the mountains right in the background are much more grey. With the sky, believe it or not, the sky that's closer to you, right above when the clouds are strong and big, so at the top of your picture, that part of the sky is usually warmer. And as it goes down towards the horizon, it will start to cool. In fact, in that photograph, there's hardly any sky at all. It's all just light. It is the cooling that happens as you go towards the horizon. In other words, the furthest point away in the picture, that you do with a cooler blue, so it recedes. If you have mountains in the distance, then you grey them off. Now they actually get more purple, so the blue in the background can be made with a bit of your cool red, so your red that's got a bit of purple in it. And let's see what happens when we put our cool blue in there. In the midground there, I'm actually going to put green down because I like mixing greens into the greens that I pick out of my color tin. So don't try and find a green that is the exact green that you are after, because it's extremely difficult, and color looks so much better when it is mixed and layered. So I'm using this green just as a quick foundation there. But I'm also going to put some blues into that green. This is a warm blue, but I'm not using it very, very heavily, so it shouldn't come forward too much. And I might use a cool yellow, which will help push it further back than this. Now I'm sure if you're actually seeing that effect in this demonstration, that these cool greens look further back than these warm greens here. I am showing you how the colors recede when they are cool. And I'll probably add a bit more, even though our original shot was not green in the foreground. I'm pretending that it is. So I want to put some more warmth in that foreground. So I'm putting in a warm blue and a warm orange. A warm red actually. So we're applying all the things that I spoke about last week in terms of more intensity. I am drawing a separate image now, just one where I'm showing you what it looks like with a light foreground, okay, and how that can still be more intense but not necessarily dark. Okay, so more full of character in the foreground. A warmer yellow. So we've got a light foreground there. I have actually found a really lovely green in the Albrecht Dürer Faber-Castell range, and that's actually called a grey green. And that works pretty well in your foreground as well, because it is a warm green. A grey green means that it's got some red in it, because when you mix red and green you get this dirty grey. So can you see that what I'm doing here is more noticeable? Maybe that's a better way, rather than dark like in that example. And then as it recedes, let's see if we can put some mountains in the background. And even when you're in the Pilbara, which for those that have not been to Australia don't know, the Pilbara is a region north of Perth in northwestern Australia where they mine iron ore, and so the soil is extremely red. It's the red dirt gets into absolutely everything as the iron ore oxidizes and rusts pretty much. But even the mountains in the background, which are the places where they're mining this red earth, even when they're in the background, they are grey. They are grey to purple. And so using the information that warm colours come forward and cool colours recede, I am hopefully showing that you can have still a fairly intense, even though it's not dark, an intense foreground, and it receding back. I might actually just put some red in there. Actually, I have got a bit of an ochre. I tend not to use brown. I found brown very dulling. That's a brown, but it's a brick red brown. Can you see that? So I'm not going to put it in the background there because it's warm, and that will help that come forward if I put a warm line so far back. So now for my sky, I'm actually adding a fairly generic blue, and you'll notice if you observe that the sky lightens off as it goes down to the horizon, so it's very often quite light there. So I hope that looks like it's receding a bit. I wanted to add a bit of this light blue into this yellow so that you could see that you've still got, you can have green in the background, but it is still cool because I've used a blue that hasn't got red in it, and I've used a yellow that hasn't got red in it. I hope you can see in that little example, it looks like things are going right into the distance. I will do one last thing. If you've got trees in the distance, please don't draw big fat trees in the distance being tiny over there, because if that's a mountain, then the tree is not going to be that big. Okay, so if you've got tree in the middle distance, then that will be bigger, like that. And if it's in the middle distance, the foliage or whatever can be halfway between warm and cool, can be fairly generic, but don't make it too warm so that it comes very much forward, and don't make it too cool so that it recedes too much. It's not really that. Art is not an exact science. So I'm just showing you, if you're putting a tree in it and it only looks bigger than the mountain when it's closer to you and not closer to the horizon. I'm putting some stronger tones, some stronger shadows. So this is going back to last week's lesson, where you can see stronger shadows in the foreground. And again, you can see exactly how that's helping with seeing the things in the distance. My favorite color for this would probably be an indigo, but I haven't got one with me at the moment. And sometimes I like that restriction of not having the exact colors, because then I have to play a bit more to get what I want out of it. And I'm enjoying this one a lot more than that one. So all of this detail or character that I'm putting in the foreground, none of it is going to go into that tree, because that tree is much further back. I am delighted, as always, to have you join me. Thank you for being with me. It's bye-bye from me, and get drawing. Bye.